It's another beautiful day in Canada, Alberta. We're above zero today, which is around 32 degrees Fahrenheit. And this is my favorite revolver of all time. It's the Uberti version of the 1860 Army Colt. Now, I've had this gun for quite a few years. It's probably one of the first handguns I ever bought. And I've always had an issue with misfiring on this one. I get the first 6 rounds off, no problem. Sometimes the second if I'm using Pyrex. But usually when it starts fouling up a little bit, it's a couple of hits to get all the cylinders fired off. And I think I found out why. I ended up noticing there was an indent on the back of the hammer, and the rear of the frame in here where the hammer sits, it was hitting that. And on this particular revolver, I don't know if all the birdies are the same. Let's see if I can get a little light in there. It's not quite as rounded off, so it's almost like the hammer was hanging up on that a little bit. It was affecting the clearance, or actually the amount that the hammer would contact the percussion cap. So as you can see, I buffed it out, took a couple of thou out of there, which allowed the hammer to move farther forward, because I noticed on the Pietas, when the cylinder's off, the face of the hammer is actually protruding past the frame a lot more than this one was. So once I did that, next thing I noticed was a little bit of wear on top of the frame. So it did move ahead a little bit after buffing this out. And I'm making I thought about actually doing a little work in there, but I'd rather not touch the frame because the hammers are easily replaced. The next thing I noticed was on the bottom of the hammer face here, it was also hanging up a bit on the frame. So I gave that a little buff too with the Dremel. And next thing I noticed, there's a considerable amount of protrusion of the hammer past the face of the frame there. And I believe, or I always notice, that any amount of fouling in the back here around this area, what you're going to get, that's when this thing started misfiring. So I was always wiping this out and wiping that off. I wasn't sure. I thought maybe it was the nipples, so I ended up buying these new ones. They're stainless steel. I forget the name of the company. I'll put a comment in there as the name of the company that makes them. But they're supposed to be quite an improvement. All the cowboy action guys use them. So I brought out a can of 3F black Go-X powder, and because of the fouling, so this will be a second attempt at resolving that problem with this revolver. And I got a feeling I might have it licked. I mean, if I can have luck with that flintlock, I can probably sort out anything. So I'll load this up and we'll start making some smoke and noise here. Well, first rounds always do go well. So I'll load her up again and see what happens. So far, so good. Get rid of those pesky spent caps. That's 3 rounds, and that is pretty good for this gun. Usually by the 3rd one I'm hanging up. So I'm not going to clean anything. I'm just going to keep going. See how long before she starts clicking and not booming. Alright, round 4. I took to putting a drop of ballistol down each chamber after I seat the ball to see how that's going to work. As it gets colder, those caps get a little more difficult to put on. It's starting to get a little cranky to get the ball in. It's some of the chambers, but we're doing alright. I didn't put any wads in this time. I'm not particularly fond of the smell of the wool burning. But I did put a drop of ballistol in the ball after loading. Let's see what happens here. Hot cap in my hand. I do love this revolver. And this drop of ballistol in the front and rear of the cylinder is the difference of this thing continuing to fire non-stop like that. There's a cap hung up on me there. That's one thing I don't like about those new nipples I put on there. Whew, there's a flinch. As they blow the percussion caps to pieces, those pieces tend to drop down the back of the cylinder, which is not good. She's never ever worked that good before. Whoa, first misfire. Making for the pile of spent caps there. Starting to hang up now, but I'm not going to complain about it. Okay, I cleaned the back of the hammer off. Yeah, it was very thick with fouling, and I cleaned the face as well. So let's see how that works. Boy, those nipples sure blow those caps apart. That's only some of them too, the rest are... Oh, there's a pile of them down there. Pick those up. Here's a little group on top with this target of 25 meters. So these things seems to be an Uberti thing, shooting high. So targets are overkill. I forgot my zombie gopher targets. Yeah, even a 100 meter. You can see, or 50 meters, sorry. All the holes are on the top end of the target. So actually, it didn't do too shabby. You know, especially I was shooting quite rapidly. So bottom half of the target's unscathed. And you can see a fair group of round ball holes up there too. So I'll call that repair I did a success.